two CMOs, me and like another CMO, exactly the same skill set, both as good. Picture's like a duplicate version of me, but I'm using AI and he's not. I'm going to win. I think it's not even close at the end of the day. It literally is not even close. If you aren't using AI as any sort of role, it's just not. I just don't see it happening.
Welcome to Content Kingdom. This is your backstage pass to the people, tools, and the trends shaping the future of content marketing.
And welcome to another episode of Content Kingdom, brought to you by Content Lion. I am your host, David G. Ewing, and with me is Kosta Hantzis from Nutré Meals. And you're the CMO, which is, to me, kind of funny because I've also heard you say that CMO is dead, right? So talk to me a little bit about that. Is the CMO dead?
I think the CMO is dead. If you're not catching up to the new wave of marketing with AI specifically, for context, that's why I'm saying that. Now with AI, used to before you had like massive teams and the CMO, how to manage, however many people depending on how big the company was. But nowadays, one CMO or one, and I like to call it growth engineer. Some people are like coining it different things, but essentially one CMO or marketer can do a lot more with the power of AI. So if you're a CMO or someone there that's not using AI to build systems, to, maybe offload some work, like, creative briefs and some work for your marketing team, you're just going to get left behind because it's just the law of, companies aren't going to be able to afford it. They're going to know that, hey, marketers can do a lot more. So I like to say I'm one person, but now with AI, I'm like 10 to 20 people.
Yeah, you're the army of one. And to me, I have this idea in my mind of what a CMO is, right? And in my mind, a CMO, if I hear the word CMO, I picture this woman who probably played soccer at Princeton. She's super outgoing and energetic, really well put together, great people person, and is really thoughtful about messaging and getting the best from her team. And that to me is like a CMO, and she's out there focusing on advocating the brand. That's the CMOs I've met, and that's like a compilation of 9 CMOs that I've met. But you're describing something totally different, right? Describe for me whatever we're going to call this role, like the CMO replacement, who is the growth engineer, whatever you want to fill in the blank, chief growth officer, maybe, I don't know, CGO. What does that profile look like? This is a different person, right?
100%. So I like to say from my background, what led me to being CMO is kind of an interesting path. I don't have the typical, career path to CMO. I'm very, very different from that. I'm someone that comes from a background of, doing real estate, starting an NFT project, doing music production, doing a whole bunch of other stuff in my, teens, early 20s, building websites for people. At the time too, it felt as though someone like that, and if I'm speaking to somebody that's someone that does a lot of stuff like that, they might feel as though, hey, I'm scattered, I'm all over the place, and I don't really have, this clear, yes, when I grow up, I want to be X, Y, Z. But actually nowadays, the person that has that diverse experience, that knows how to do video editing, maybe website building, knows how to, whatever, music production. Now with AI, I want that growth operator and growth engineer. I like the word engineer, it just makes me sound cooler. But the reason why that's so powerful is I now have a background of all those different, maybe 10 to 20 areas, because I experimented, I tried different things, I'd had different businesses work. I now can take all that knowledge and use AI, because I'm not an expert at the end of the day. I have a high level, understanding of a lot of different fields. But now with AI, I don't really need to have an in-depth knowledge. I can at least know, hey, based on this, I want XYZ music production. Hey, I want the vibe of the music to feel like this. And I want an EDM track, because I know okay, maybe this is higher energy. I know what looks good. And at least through the whole idea, and you hear a lot of people say this whole vibe coding, vibe marketing. People like to use the word taste. And it's really the people that are winning are people, marketers especially, but really anywhere. People with great taste, they know what works, they know what doesn't work. Maybe they're not an expert in, AI engineering or something kind of crazy, but at least they know when they see something, hey, this looks good or it doesn't look good, this feels right, this doesn't. And they have that background. They can use AI. And as Sam Altman says from OpenAI, now the idea guy, this is his time to shine. So it's a good thing for me because I know I'm just, idea overload all the time, like a lot of business people, entrepreneurs, but you can actually bring those ideas to life now more than ever.
Hey friends, real quick, you're going to hear a little bit of background noise, but the material was just too good to cut. So just know that we did our best, but it will go away. And all right, with that, back to the show.
And so paint a picture for me for how that operates or how that manifests itself in a day-to-day environment. So at Nutré, for example, walk me through what your growth engineering month looks like, or what are kind of like the things that you're doing that you're saying these are like the top 5 things that I'm performing and that I'm doing that would normally be CMO, and this without a CMO, this is what I'm all about.
Yeah. So AI tools are evolving more than ever. I've tried them all, Claude, ChatGPT. The biggest thing I'm using right now that's been an absolute game changer, man, this is another great one as well. Something called OpenClaw. People, it's been blown up over the internet. This whole lobster, is the mascot of it. OpenAI essentially bought this company. Mainly they bought the person that actually founded this company named Peter. He created the first, and I have a Mac Mini sitting over here. If you guys know what a Mac Mini, just like the Apple computer. He created
you can't buy one these days. Yeah.
It's very hard.
Order on that is this is 6 months now because of what you're doing. But yeah, keep going. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's what he did essentially is in the past, you had to, chat GPT, meaning you had to chat directly, ask questions, manually do everything. Now with something like OpenClaw, picture it as it's something that's connected to all different AI platforms, but can do tasks automatically. Now, Claude Cowork and stuff has scheduled tasks, but this is the first autonomous thing, and it will automatically do these things. So now more than ever, it's not just about, it's getting even crazier because I'm not just typing into Claude or ChatGPT to help me come up with these things. I'm using something that's automatic. So to dive a little bit deeper of what that looks like, picture it as an entire, I like to call it mission control. Every morning I get a morning briefing that outlines all my emails. It says all ad performance, organic performance on social media, everything I want to know about my business. It comes to me every morning with a consolidated report. These were our top ads. This is what our CPA was. This is what this was. And not only is the information, that's great to know, I can log into my ad account and find that stuff. Having it for one, just directly on my phone, I use Telegram as well as Discord, if people are familiar with that. Not only do I know this information a lot quicker, based on that information, it can automatically do stuff for me. So if something, an ad is, the cost to acquire customers is too much and this ad's not working, it can automatically pause that ad. If something else is going wrong with a landing page or something like that, it can draft up an email to our dev team automatically and send it and notify them. I have it in Slack where people in Slack can ask, I named it after my dog, funny enough, Zeus. People in Slack can communicate with Zeus as if he was me or another employee on the team, ask a question about marketing and know, hey, what's the status of, the launch of our new rebranding website? And it will show exactly, hey, here it is. And he actually has an email too. So it looks like someone, some crazy marketer like me with the help of AI doing a whole bunch of stuff at once a lot faster. It really comes down to speed at the end of the day. Everybody was like, if you open up Twitter and stuff like that, people are like, AI took over everything and is doing everything for me and blah, blah, blah. And most of it's just hype, just people trying to sell AI stuff. The truth of the matter is it just makes you a hell of a lot faster and you can have a hell of a lot leaner team. So that's kind of what the day in the life from a high level looks like, but I'm happy to, dive into any specific pieces.
So Kosta, that's pretty awesome in terms of how you've described that. In fact, I've got some people I want to introduce you to who are some CEOs who are doing some of the similar things that you're doing. A lot of people haven't gotten started with the level that you're talking about yet, but everyone is kind of on that cusp, right? I've seen a lot of people fooling around, and you do see those things where people are talking about the automations that they're doing point by point with either OpenClaw or Codex or any of the other ones. For someone who is a CMO, which is a lot of our audience, or a marketing practitioner who's working with content, what is step one? How do you get into this and get started with maybe start to figure out what is the first thing you're going to automate or the first thing that you're going to do that's easy and that might produce some immediate benefit?
100%. And it is confusing at the end of the day. I have to take a step back because I was talking to my girlfriend and the way that I explain stuff, she's like, you're not making clear sense. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not. Not everybody knows about OpenClaw and ChatGPT and Claude Code. No. So 100% get that. And the answer is, people not like it, but it's pretty simple at the end of the day. Choose whatever AI tool you like to use. I like Claude for something like this, but essentially, I want you to have just one brain dump session with Claude and say, hey, here's my business. Here's what I do. Here's all my tasks. Everything that you do as a business owner. Don't tell it what to do. Just say at the end, hey, I want to, use AI more with all these processes. What do you recommend? And if you do that, it will literally come up with an entire plan. And the reason why I say don't give it strict instructions, as nowadays, people used to before gave like, Claude strict instructions. Hey, Claude, do this, and then come up with, like a 5-page report on this. And I want to structure it like that. That's gone. Now what you want to do is the AI is so good. You just want to give it like a high level overview, and it will figure out what to do, because the reason is if you tell it what to do, that might not be the best way for AI to understand. So you actually want to let it do its thing. And then from there, you can go and refine and tweak stuff. And if something doesn't make sense, do that. The main way though, taking that is, again, you probably get some sort of response back. It'll probably start with your emails. It'll probably start with, meeting recaps. I really like, the first step I took was using AI as kind of like an OpenClaw as like an assistant chief of staff to me, like my assistant CMO. So that looked like, me connecting my calendar, my email, my meeting note taker. I use a tool called Granola. I love it, but you can use like, Otter and different tools like that. But I think Granola for AI is way, way better. What it will do is you can set up connections to say, great, here's how you can connect, your calendar. Here's how you can connect your email. Here's how you can connect Granola. And from there, at least step one, it will help automate a lot of the things that, maybe you just don't love doing, before meetings. Now you can get like a meeting prep 30 minutes before that scans all past meeting notes, all your emails, and comes up with a summary exactly. Start there, just like you would start with like an executive assistant, of getting rid of the things that like don't really move the needle forward, but just need to be done. And then from there, you can build on and find different things. The best thing to do is at the end of the day, end of the week, go into ChatGPT or like, take a second, step back and be, okay, what did I do this week? And if you don't really know AI that well, just tell it, hey, this is what I did this week. Where can you help me the most in my business?
Nice. You brought up something that's kind of a really interesting dynamic in human to human relationships, but it's now part of human to AI relations. And that is the level of delegation, right?
Yep.
And what I always explain to new managers is, if you have somebody who's just joined your team or maybe doesn't have a lot of familiarity or skill, or they're an entry-level person, that you need to delegate to them by task, right? You need to say, do this, pick up this rock, take it from that corner to this corner, or whatever the task is, describe the task and delegate by task, right? Bang, 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 bang. But if suddenly you have someone who's as talented as like a Elon Musk or a Sam Altman, or someone who's working for you, right? Who's like a genius, you don't tell them exactly what you need to do. You delegate by goal, right? You're like, this is the outcome that I need you to do, figure it out. And that person can do it. And I think what you just described with AI is a trap that I was in for a long time, which is I didn't think the AI was that intelligent. So I just would tell it exactly what I wanted to do. And I wound up not leveraging its full capabilities, because if I just asked for the outcome I was trying to achieve, it can get there a lot better of a way. So I thought that was a really interesting insight you just brought up. The next thing I want to talk about is, if people aren't coders, right? Then I know there's a lot of intimidation factor that they have to working with something in more of a technical capacity. And really, I think, what you're saying is that a lot of those barriers have been removed. I'm an engineer, you're an engineer, but you don't have to be an engineer to get the technical outcomes that you want anymore, right? Like, you just have to be the manager of a bunch of engineers, because that's essentially what the AI is. So help me understand, what is the next step then? So after the brain dump and, doing these evaluations and getting these outcomes, how does a non-technical person put their toe in the water and do something technical for the first time?
So the way that I like to do it is with Claude Code. I think Claude Code right now is or Codex is great from OpenAI, but Claude Code for me, I've just found is the best. And you do not need to know code. You literally talk in English and you'll tell it to do certain stuff, and it will go and build you the most crazy dashboard you've ever seen. It will build the most, crazy landing page you've ever seen. I can't really believe how good the landing pages are that Claude Code creates. It's nuts. There are some nuances to it as well. If you just say, hey, Claude Code, go create, a landing page about this, XYZ, and you just give it like text, it won't be that good. What you really need to do, and this is even for a beginner audience, and I think most people should have this, is you at least need to have some sort of file storage of like what your actual brand is. So like brand guidelines, brand voice, brand colors, everything about your brand. So I have one for Nutré. And then if I wanted to create a landing page, I would just, go and find 5 different landing pages I liked, upload that as well to Claude Code, and I would sit back and let it do its thing, and you will be blown away what we can actually build. So you don't need to have a technical background. What I do say though is for like a company like Nutré that's, doing multiple 8 figures a year, and we have like, a lot of customers, I don't feel comfortable, like Claude coding a landing page or something important and just throwing it out there. So what I do, and this is what most of the gurus and stuff won't tell you, about AI, I have someone that's a crazy good engineer for the last 25 years, super smart, is a crazy, crazy level. What I do is I build this stuff, get it to the point that I like it, and then I hand it off to him to put the final touches on to make sure things work properly. If you're building out anything for yourself, basic trackers and dashboards and stuff like that for yourself, that's okay. Be careful with the data though. Sometimes Claude can tell you something about your financials that aren't true. Some guy I heard lost millions of dollars because he was doing his inventory wrong, and Claude was, over projecting stuff, and all of a sudden he lost millions of dollars by just listening to Claude. Do not do that. Make sure to double check. And that just, goes back to the point though, of, as I said earlier, it's not about, replacing people. It's about making your people more lethal at the end of the day. So now my accountant maybe can do I can send them a whole entire report, and they have the baseline, they can get the job faster. Now my dev that I work with has, the foundation, they go in there and tweak it. So it's really I envision it like an alley-oop type of thing. I doing all the work, getting the foundation there, then I throw it up to my dev team, I throw it up to whoever else, and they dunk it because they actually know how to make sure everything works properly.
I think you've hit one of the most nerve-wracking pieces of this, which is I think everyone is afraid that their job is going to be completely eliminated. And I think, there are unfortunately going to be some people who don't make the turn, right? There's going to be some people who they just either don't want to wade into this, can't get their head around it, or it's so far past their comfort zone. But is that really what's going to happen to the average person, or, the above average person? What are your thoughts on that?
It's tough to predict the future. A lot of people have different opinions and stuff like that. With this, it's, blown up over the internet. I think with AI, we are going to see more opportunity because now the speed of things, there's going to be more businesses, more stuff coming about that we're going to need more people, maybe using AI, but we're going to need more people because now we can innovate a lot faster. So I'm pretty bullish, on AI being able to help and actually create more jobs. I think somebody that is, below average, as you like to say, maybe average, below average, that refuses to use AI will just get, beat out by somebody that does use AI at the end of the day. It's not, they might not get beat out by AI, everybody likes to think like a robot or something like that, but they will get beat out by me. Who's going to compete with me as two CMOs, me and another CMO, exactly the same skill set, both as good, pictures like a duplicate version of me, but I'm using AI and he's not. I'm going to win. I think it's not even close at the end of the day. It literally is not even close. If you aren't using AI as any sort of role, it's just not. I just don't see it happening. I'm not like a doomsday person, but it's just use it and then go back and you'll be like, okay, yeah, I know what he's talking about.
Yeah. A couple thoughts I have on that is that, we are making a turn right now. And, I remember back when I got out of college, which is a while ago, there were those guys who were like, I'm not using email. I'm going to have my executive assistant print out my email and I'll read the email at my desk and give my response. Those people didn't make the turn, right? They either adapted or they retired. I think we're at another pivotal point like that. But one of the things that I think gives me hope is there's a statistic that I think it was at the turn of the last century, right? The year 1900. When the year 1900 turned over, 40% of America was farmers, right? And if you told all of those farmers back then, hey, guess what? By the year 2026, less than 1% of America will be farmers. There would have been widespread panic of what are we all going to do, right? And clearly that's, with hindsight, not that terrifying. I kind of think we're in a position where, yes, there's going to be this massive disruption. And I think, 40 to 50% of us our jobs are not going to exist, but there will be replacements. There will be things we do because we'll just be, we'll be doing better and bigger things. But where I want to go with this next is, all right, we talked about how to get started, the brain dump piece, and then we talked about how to put your toe in the water and maybe get started with that. Talk to me about a early win that you had. When was the first time you're like, damn, that produced a lot of ROI? Because I think that's also one of the challenges people have is I keep hearing the statistic that 95% of AI projects are flashy and cool, but they don't produce any ROI. And so what's your response to that?
The biggest win I had AI where it actually blew my mind was actually two things. One, the whole landing page stuff. We were doing a ton of landing pages for Nutré. And once I saw what it created and I was like, this is better. I paid $2,500 for a landing page and this AI thing, and within 2 hours was better that landing page, I'm like, I sent it over to our team and they're like, this is crazy. Like what they're mind blown. And again, that's before, as I talked about, of having the context with it, but just seeing what AI was capable, especially designing some sort of website or landing page. It was honestly scary at the same time. I was excited because that's, I don't have to pay $2,500 for a landing page. I can do it with, Claude and some API tokens, but having that and in combination, any sort of copywriting things. Now, I think Claude is the best. You hear a lot of people talk about Claude being the best writer. Now with, different sort of skills. And I don't know if we want to go deep into skills because there are something called skills in Claude that are essentially just like, a blueprint of what instructions of what you want Claude to do. So a SEAL could be like, hey, here are the best copywriters in history. Here's all their frameworks. Here's a step-by-step process of how to write, killer a Facebook ad copy. And you would say, go to Claude and be like, hey, using my skill, I need to write ad copy for this ad. And it would go through that skill of all the blueprints of like, even for yourself, you could record like your method and it could go and it would take you through that entire method and it will get you 95% of the way there. And honestly, now it's just as good, if not, it's better than most copywriters out there. Maybe the top elite copywriters, they are still, they can write better copy, but now those top elite copywriters are using AI to do it a lot faster and just putting their final tweaks on it. And again, speed at the end of the day is what it comes down to. Do that stuff and your mind will be blown.
So there was a book that I read when I first got started called Tested Advertising Methods by John Capels. I don't know if you ever read that one. You got that book too? Yeah, it's on my shelf back here. Yeah. So that's my favorite go-to when I'm doing that. Is I'm in there saying like, hey, use John Capel's techniques and give me headlines for using each one of the things from I think like chapter 6 or whatever. But I went and looked it up, and a lot of these AI engines are trained on John Capel's, and so you can use tested advertising methods right out of the gate, which is awesome. I'd be really curious. This landing page that you launched, the first one, is it still available? Is it public?
It's public. We actually built we built multiple landing pages. The coolest thing, we actually built an entire business site for Nutré for all our B2B accounts, things like, health centers and corporate wellness, fridges and stuff like that. We built something, we hired a designer on Upwork. They built something in, a tool called Webflow, web designer tool. What it came back with, it was like, I hate this website so much. It got to the point where it's like, I'm just going to go to Claude and try to do it myself. Within Claude, a couple hours, I was able to come up with the bare bones and a pretty decent looking website for the entire business site. And that's when I handed over to our dev person to do it and actually bring it to life fully. But that website is going to be on our main Nutré domain where thousands and thousands of people go. And it's just insane. It's a full scale website.
That's awesome. Fantastic. And that's kind of a really interesting use case of how to do that. My reason for asking is if there was any way we could put in the show notes, maybe some links to some examples of some of your stuff. If they are public, it'd be really cool for people to be able to check that out. So, all right, cool. Well, that's neat. All right, let's go one step further. So, talk to me about like something you haven't done yet, something very ambitious and big that's kind of like, and this is where I'm taking this thing. Where are you going?
It's honestly so hard to answer that question because my mind wants to go to 50 different places because I have a problem of, I for lack of better words, like I have a life coach. My girlfriend has seen this too. And a lot of entrepreneurs have the problem and stuff like that. Even though I'm not an entrepreneur, I consider myself more an entrepreneur right now, but I have entrepreneurial tendencies. The urge just to build, like I have a new idea every week. And right now it's about, saying that's a good idea, but actually putting it to the side. That's the real struggle, is not actually trying to build it out. But where I want to go with this is for Nutré, making Nutré the most, tech forward, best user platform in the world when it comes to being a meal delivery company. Because I think now as we see, things change with AI, I think meal delivery, more and more people are going to use a meal delivery service. So I want to just make Nutré AI forward, where it's just, a snap of the finger and you can find like the best meal plan designed to your body based on your needs. I really want to see, AI help there. Maybe we tie in some sort of, health side of things with supplements, or, a lot of these companies are blowing up with, peptides, GLPs and stuff like that. I think that there is an opportunity to grow into a company that has everything based on your body and prescribes you everything you need from a health perspective for Nutré. Otherwise, for tools of like, where I want to go outside of Nutré with AI is just, being able to take ideas that I have, building them a lot quicker and developing a team almost. I see myself, post Nutré sales, because the goal right now is to bring Nutré to that point of a certain valuation and ideally one day sell. So I'm trying to have all focus on there. But at the same time too, like as I open my mind to what's possible, it's being able to, hire really great people and almost like, they have incubators and portfolio companies and kind of ways of looking at business like that. I think the way forward for me is being in some sort of realm of having multiple different businesses and being able to think of different ideas and using AI as well as in combination with an amazing team to bring these ideas to life and, disrupt every industry that I think needs disrupting. And one of the cool things I'll share is it's not public yet. It's something that, toying with an idea is there's something called beatmyfunnel.com. So I actually got inspiration from, and I think this is the future of hiring. There were some tweets of the past couple of weeks of two different people that are very successful in the e-com space saying, hey, listen, $15,000, I will give you $15,000 if you beat the conversion rate of our website. And that challenge went live. He posted it on Twitter. It blew up. A bunch of people are like, you know what? I'm going to compete in this. Another operator that's, just told his agency, super successful person, was like, okay, fine. I have this sock brand that I own, $30,000 if you beat, the conversion rate on my website. And this got me thinking, my gears torn. This is how I think. I see something like that. I'm like, okay, there's an opportunity there. And I was like, I'm hiring somebody on Upwork. I've hired a bunch of people on Upwork. I have all these agencies work for us, et cetera. Like, what if there's something here in a way that, a brand could post some sort of challenge and the best people in the world could compete to beat that challenge. And if they beat it, they win that prize and potentially earn themselves a job. So that came to life of that idea of beat my funnel. But the real way that I think that could turn into, because that's very like marketing orientated with conversion rate and stuff like that. I think nowadays it's almost a new way of hiring. And if brands could be like whatever brand out there, big brands, Apple, whatever it is, could just post, these bounties and be like, hey, listen, we have this bounty. If you want to compete for it and show that you guys what your skills are, like go for it. It's a way of minimizing risk for Apple and these other companies. I'm just using Apple as an example because you can actually see their work. And it's an opportunity for young people and people at all, levels to be like, okay, I have the skill sets. I can go out there and do that. And I think I can put my foot in the door and actually get into a company like that. And it opens the door on their playing field and levels the playing field for people that maybe like don't have the connections to, get in the door with like, a larger company, but are very talented. They do this, they compete, they win, great, they win money, potentially a job. And even if they don't, the results are posted online on this platform that we would build where people can actually then go and hire these people based on skills.
You're describing almost like an X prize for like a specific business objective that that people could have. So then they, you hit the criteria, you win the X prize and maybe, get a job out of that as well. So I think that's pretty cool. All right. I got a couple of tactical questions that I want to ask you. One thing, you mentioned you're a big Claude fan, but do you feel that like you need a certain level of subscription to Claude in order to get the output that you're looking for? And where do you feel is like paying too much? Are you at the max level? How do you look at that?
Yeah. So for Claude, we're at the max subscription. It's $200 a month. There's one for $100. There's one for $200 a month. If you're doing any sort of Claude code and stuff like that, it is worth it. Like, for us, at Nutré, we can be able to, a lot of people can't afford that, but for us at a company at the size, it saves us money at the end of the day. Now that our team can like use this tool, we can go a lot faster. So, it's cheaper from a standpoint of there, but just starting out, you can start with like there's $20 a month plan. The $100 a month plan is great. I know that I try to be like wary of that because it's different if you're in a business. I think you can get started on the lower levels and build some really cool stuff and then work your way up. The thing with Open Claude, it's funny that you asked that question too, is Claude actually, just came out saying that you cannot use Anthropic, which is Claude, who owns Claude, our subscription with Open Claude. Because what I would work before is for $200 a month, I was using that $200 a month subscription plan, and I was having my Open Claw use that for API credits. And essentially, as a way of gamifying it, where like, hey, Max, is the data was like it's $5,000 worth of API credits for $200. Now that ChatGPT is crazy. Now that OpenAI bought OpenClaw and that guy Peter, they were essentially like Anthropic, and Claude is trying to build out very similar things. They're like, you can't use this anymore, gone. So now people are freaking out, even me, because it's like seeing how much API a lot of the stuff that I was doing it was taking, because now I have to like directly pay for those credits. I'm switching a lot of things to OpenAI and trying to minimize it, because even for our level, I'm like, this is too expensive at the end of the day. So you can get pretty crazy with API credits. But to answer your question, bring it back, get started on that plan. However it is, you can even start free and then work your way up to a higher subscription. If you want to do any sort of coding stuff, which I recommend at least people, dabble around for, maybe do $100 for 1 month just to see what's capable. Find it hard that you're going to go back.
Okay. So those are two big things in your toolkit that you like. What else is in your go-to toolkit that if you were to assemble a toolkit for a revenue engineer, what else goes in the kit besides those two?
Manus for sure. So I love Manus because Meta just bought Manus. I've used it for a bit, and then when Meta bought it, it was even better because we do a ton of stuff with Facebook ads, Instagram, and now that again Meta bought it, you can connect directly to your ad account. You can connect directly to Instagram. You can connect directly to the Instagram marketplace to find influencers and creators. So now I can be like, hey, and this is a prompt that I used before. Hey, Manus, go over to my Instagram, find our best performing content. Then I want you to go search the creator library and find me creators that you think would be great for our brand, put it in a spreadsheet. And, actually, that's great. Let's take it one step further. I want to build an entire influencer CRM. Now let's build out an entire thing where I can manage the pipeline. I can see their contact information. And that is something that we actually just built out. So we have an entire influencer CRM fully built on Manus that you can literally has all the creators connected to the marketplace. I can search whoever I want to. I can drag people through different pipelines. It came up with automatic emails, automatic, DMs I can send out to them. That's a crazy way we used it. The other thing that I've used Manus for is building out an entire growth dashboard for Nutré. The number one thing when I talk to, like, they lack data for companies. People don't really understand what's going on in their business. For us, Nutré is a fully custom site, so we're not on Shopify, meaning that we don't have access to a lot of the plugins and the standard reporting that a lot of companies have. And we got so tired of being like, okay, what's our data? I was able to connect Manus to our entire database it's something called MongoDB. It's just a data warehousing platform that stores all our reports, everything like that. Now I have a full entire growth command center, 10 different tabs. I have a dashboard of all my key metrics. I have state level data. I have cohort data. I literally have everything I need in any information possible in all-in-one platform that I built with AI.
That's amazing. Anything else you'd put in your toolkit?
Manus, Claude for sure. I'm using OpenAI and ChatGPT less. I don't really think it's not as great. They're trying to make it better now that Anthropic's not supporting the OpenClaw. Mm-hmm. I love Granola for meeting note takers. I talked about it briefly, but Granola is the best meeting note taker tool out there by far. 100%. It records every single meeting. I can chat with it. It's the best thing I've used so far. That's great. I love Notion as well. Notion's just like a great place to store all information. And essentially, a cool thing I did with Notion is actually my girlfriend, who's an interior designer, struggled to create content for a bit. And I was watching her, struggle, what do I post? How do I film? So I actually built her an entire AI powered content, operating system where literally we just posted it. We're actually selling it, shameless plug, but posted it, created it. And she had a reel do 1.2 million views using this system. She literally uses it every day. And people that have got it so far are like, this is crazy. If you ever start, because the issue with a lot of, business owners and just busy people is it's not that they don't have ideas, it's that they have no system and they're not consistent with their content because they have no idea what to post. This ties in a little bit of AI, gives you all the content ideas that you need. And it literally, it will change your content game 100x.
Amazing. Well, get us the link to that and we'll put your shameless plug in the show notes for that one as well. What about a workflow platform? Are you interested in using like a Zapier or an N8N, or do you skip those and just go straight with point-to-point code that you host somewhere else? How do you typically like to set that up?
Yeah, so I've used N8N for a bit. I don't love N8N because it's very technical and I'm not like a technical person. So I like early in the day, maybe it's got better now, but I have used Zapier for, forever. And I think Zapier is great now. I still even use it now. It has like AI agents. A lot of people don't even know Zapier has AI agents and a lot of AI stuff built in. That's one of those funny things where like everybody has these complex, crazy AI workflows, but really Zapier can do a lot of those things itself. So Manus though is kind of battling with Zapier for that, autonomous agent that can do a lot of the stuff that Zapier does. If you know Dan Martell, he talks about that a lot, how he's replacing Zapier and a lot of stuff with Manus because it can deploy a bunch of agents and do things as long as you have connectors and set up, and it does it automated. So yeah, I think Zapier is great to at least have baseline. I set it up for a client the other day to tie in some different platforms. I think it's just reliable at the end of the day, and I know how to use it better. But now more and more I'm using Manus and even OpenClaw to do different things automated like that.
Sweet. Okay. So when we sum up the total cost of all of these things, I'm kind of keeping track of it in my mind. This is still less than one employee, right? Like this is like a half of an employee or a quarter of an employee in costs that you've got in these systems to be able to do what you're doing. Is that right? Am I in the right ballpark?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And not even for us, like I use all of them because I'm a tech nerd at the end of the day, but I think each one serves a platform, and the more that output we can do, great. But you could start with Claude, you can start with Manus, either or I think are fine. So I'm at the level of using APIs with like OpenClaw and stuff like that takes up that, but there's no reason why you can't be on a lower plan and just using single tools, mastering those, and then trying out different ones in time.
All right, fantastic. Well, Kosta, you've given us kind of a master class on how to go from 0 to 60 in AI as a CMO who's trying to become a revenue engineer. This is really, really cool. What's one thing we haven't talked about that you feel is part of the picture? Is there anything that we've left off?
Sure. I think I'm wearing it right now. Another shameless plug, but it's not really the same as whatever side it's on right there.
Stay dialed over there. Yeah.
Stay dialed. So
what's that?
As much as I love AI and stuff like that, there is another side that I think is important to talk about. It kind of ties in the stay dialed movement, and I'll give you guys a quick backstory of that. I just always started using the word dialed. Like, it was kind of like my signature thing at work. I'd be, hey, are you dialed? Oh, that's dialed. And it became this thing for like a year that people just like joke, hey, dialed. And you say dial. Yeah. And so it became this, joke almost. And one day I was like, I think the word dialed is powerful. I was listening to social media videos and noticing more. I think my particular activating system was finding more and more people saying dialed. So I was like, let's actually put some meaning behind the word dialed. And I created this entire manifesto of what being dialed means. On the back of these hoodies, it actually breaks down what dialed is. And how it came to life was, as much as I I love to build with AI, I like, entrepreneurs and busy people like that, or high performers, are always doing stuff and are so focused on their work. I think there's the element that's important, and being great at your work and being great at your craft is important. But a lot of people tend to overdo that and then under leverage their whole family side of things. So I like to think my girlfriend, if she watches this, like for her, she kind of like brought it to attention that I was almost, doing a lot of stuff, or just too on my laptop, or too building stuff. And it wasn't from a framework of like, we're not trying to, because she's a business owner, we're both striving, hitting goals, we're trying to build stuff. But there's almost a time where like you're overdoing stuff and you're not actually getting done. I was finding myself, building AI stuff that didn't actually matter at the end of the day. So I was like, Grant, she said that, and I was like, that's actually, I'm not really doing, this actually isn't moving the needle forward. And I think a lot of people tried to, when they're building something big, they try to kind of alienate or not take the time for their family. So the stay dialed movement is for people that want to build great things, but aren't willing to sacrifice the most important things in their life. And I almost, went down an alternative path of that. And I caught myself, lucky for her, saying that of like, I don't want to be like the rich, lonely person that has a bunch of money, but no family, no connections. So the whole dialed movement is for people that want to be builders, but don't subscribe to the entire hustle culture side of things. It can have both. They're building both side of things. So a little bit of a long-winded answer there for dialed, but I think it's something that has popularity because a lot of people relate to it. They're like, when I say that, they're like, yeah, like I want to build great stuff, but no, I don't want to like, not have a great relationship or whatever. So I think a lot of people are moving towards that ethos.
Yeah. Well, lucky for her, lucky for you. And, does Stay Dialed have like a website where people can read more about it?
Yeah, we could put it in the show links below. It's I won't say it out loud because I still have it tied. It's like staydialed.netlify.com. I have, because the domain's very expensive, so I'm just hosting it. Netlify is actually, if you're using AI, it's a great thing to use to actually host websites and landing pages. That's what I like. Claude can automatically connect to it. But yeah, that's what I've been using to host it, and it's done a pretty good job. But we can put it in the show notes or anything like that if you want to go check it out.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely. I think it sounds like a good movement. I agree with the movement, and there've been a lot of entrepreneurs that I've worked with, and there's two elements to stay dialed that I actually would argue. One's the work-life balance and like trying to make sure that you don't lose sight of your humanity. The other is I have found that a lot of this AI work can get super addictive in a way that takes you away from the other things in business, right? Like if you're running a business, you've got a lot of things on your plate, and playing around with AI, to your point of like doing something that's really interesting, but maybe doesn't move the needle for the business, not where you want to be, right? And so staying dialed on just my business balance side, and then staying dialed in my family, also definitely two things that I think I've seen entrepreneurs struggling with, and other people who are entrepreneuring like you're describing. So
yeah,
cool movement.
It's tough though. It's tough though, because I think the last thing I'll say there, it's tough because you have so many people like, you go on YouTube of like, and listen to people of like, you just got to grind nonstop and not do this and not do that. And it's like, no, you don't have to do that. Let's just be clear. Like most people are actually running from the other side of things because they actually want to, they don't want to be at home. They don't have a great relationship at home. They don't have, if they have kids, it's they're running from it, whatever it is. Like I just could not imagine living a life like that. So dialed people build a life that they love living and a work that they love doing.
Fantastic. Kosta, if people want to find more about your ideas and you and what you're doing and also your company or companies, if you have more in the future, where do they go?
I'm on all social media platforms. You can find me on Instagram at Kosta Hantzis. LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Twitter, I'm back and forth with. I love Twitter. I learn the most from Twitter, but I'm struggling to grow on Twitter. That's whatever you want to call it at the end of the day. But man, I feel like the best content that does well there is like the AI crazy growth of like people being like, I built a $10 million company in one day with like AI, that sort of stuff. So I struggle with that. But the best way to probably do it is we can put in the description. I have a personal website that just links all the stuff that we've talked about. That's probably the best way to find me.
All right.
But I'm everywhere.
Kosta, thank you so much for being on Content Kingdom. This has really been a fantastic episode and a really interesting path. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Coffee, beer, whiskey, wine.
Yerba mate.
Yerba mate.
I used to drink coffee 2-3 cups a day, energy drinks, all this stuff for years. I was a caffeine addict, literally, just like loved it. I switched to yerba mate because Andrew Huberman, actually, I learned it from him, and a bunch of people were saying it's a cleaner source of caffeine. So
swim, hike, bike, run.
Probably hike or swim.
Not a runner.
I just like the ocean. I like warmer weather and being in the ocean, the water and stuff like that. And I like to swim. I think it's a funner thing than being cold.
Favorite book, child books count too.
The book that I've read the most times over is The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. That's the book I've probably read 10 to 15 times.
You're going to have to elaborate. I've never heard of this book. What is it?
So there's this author named Eric Jorgensen. What he does is Naval Ravikant's a successful, entrepreneur, tech person. He profiles people. So he spent years and years taking all of Naval's podcasts, YouTube video, tweets, everything like that, and compiling it into a book. So it's essentially like everything that this person Naval thinks. And I'm very aligned with the way that he thinks.
Drones, love them or hate them?
Depends what their use case is for. I think they're kind of weird at the end of the day, depending on it. But I envision like, are we talking about war drones? Are we talking about like Amazon packages coming on drones? It depends on the use case. They are a little weird though. I will say that.